It's noon here in Ventnor City, New Jersey, and our nation's capital, Washington, D.C. And this is CarEdge Live for Thursday, November 13th, with your hosts, me, Ray, here in Ventnor City, and Zach, well, sitting in a dealership somewhere in Washington, D.C., perhaps threatening to I doubt it. But in case he was threatening to buy a car, we're all here to help him. That is our mission at CarEdge.
Quite the intro this morning, folks. Grateful you're here with us, not in a dealership in the office, but the green screen's working overtime. Friendly reminder, we are doing dual streams here on YouTube. If you want the vertical orientation, you go ahead and click on the one that has the little phone emoji on it. If you want the landscape orientation, you got to click on the one that does not have the phone emoji. Again, one for mobile, one not for mobile. It's back on the CarEdge Live channel. Dad, today's show is brought to you by CarEdge.com. 6 freaking years ago, y'all, my dad and I started building this little thing we call CarEdge, all in service of helping you get a great deal when you buy a car. We have a promotion ongoing. For a limited time, we have $150 off our car buying service. Every single day, dozens of people are signing up and working with our team of concierge experts. You can learn more about their qualifications, their decades of experience in the car industry, and how they can help you have a great car buying experience, as well as get a free consultation. And CarEdge Pro is 15% off. This is the tool set we use to get you the best deal. Now, Dad, the big story this morning is the car market in the United States of America is broken. And I've got a lot of data that helps reinforce this argument. Go for it, Dad.
Is that my brother, Ken?
Nope.
Or is
broken.
That broken?
Broken. Not your bro Ken. It's broken. We've got two different pieces of data that I think are going to frame this, Dad, and really, I think are quite damning for what's going on in the auto industry. First things first, KBB report. New vehicle average transaction price actually went down in October. EV sales stalled and incentives dropped. Here's case number one for why the car market is broken. The average transaction price went down month over month to a measly $49,766. Now, what's damning in this report is twofold. One is, did you know that the average MSRP for a full-size pickup truck has now passed $70,000? So the average transaction price for a new car is almost $50,000, but you want a pickup truck, which is this pickup truck country, $70,000 big ones. That's data point number one for the car market being broken.
That is a sign that most people need to get their head examined, at least to me. Whether you're the manufacturer or the ultimate customer, the question needs to be asked, why does anyone need to spend $70,000 on a pickup truck to be able to get from point A to point B when there are any number of other vehicles out there that can do the same? And in some cases, you could be looking at vehicles that can do the same, and for that same $70,000, buy, 2 3/4 vehicles as opposed to one vehicle.
So data point number one, $70,351. Keep that in mind, folks. Average MSRP for full-size pickup trucks sold last month. Now, the next thing that tells me that the car market is broken is we look at the average transaction price, which is the blue line here, compared to the average incentive spend as a percentage of the average transaction price. The simplest way to understand this would be that if this was, it's currently 6.5%. Imagine it was 10% and the average transaction price for a new car was $100,000. That means that manufacturers would be spending $10,000, 10% of $100,000, $10,000 to incentivize the sale of their vehicles. Well, the current math, Dad, is the average transaction price for a new car is $49,766, and manufacturers on average are spending 6.5% of that amount to subsidize, to incentivize the sale of their vehicles. The thing that tells me this is broken is look at the sharpness with which this orange line has gone down. The percentage, or the incentive as a percentage of the average transaction price, has dropped down precipitously. That line is plummeting. That doesn't make any sense. How can sales are slowing? I've got inventory data we're going to look at in a minute here. Sales are slowing, but incentives are plummeting? How, like what? That's broken.
Well, here's what's broken. manufacturers only have so much money to spread around.
Which, to be clear, 6.5% is $3,234. Rounded up, $3,235 per $49,766 vehicle sold is what they're spending in incentives
Yes.
right now.
But my point is, if you are using some of the money that you have to spread around to eat and offset some of the tariff costs that you now have, then that takes away from the money that you would normally be using to incentivize the sale of the vehicle. Apparently, you can't do both to the same extent that you had been. Before the pandemic, incentives would be 10.5, 11.5%. So incentives made up more than 10% of the transaction price. So if a vehicle was $50,000 back then, that would have been $5,000 in incentives to sell it, as opposed to today, it's $3,235. That's a significant difference. And some of that is being eaten up by the extra costs involved in the tariffs today. So what means that it's broken is the fact that the prices are as high as they are, and there's significant enough sales that for the manufacturers, they can remain somewhat profitable, not as profitable as they had been. And the chasm between those who can buy things and those who can't has never been greater. And I believe, as part of that study, there is a quote in there that, yeah, everything seems hunky-dory for well-heeled buyers. But what about the rest of us?
Yeah, for sure, Dad, for sure. We go off that tangent every single show. I want to focus just on the data. And there's more data on the inventory side of things that actually paints a pretty compelling case that what you just said is wrong, that this is not sustainable for the manufacturers. And I want to pull this information up right now. Look at this. We have the latest new car inventory data. Literally just came out a couple of minutes ago from Cox Automotive. New vehicle inventory rising ahead of holiday sales season. We are up to 2.97 million vehicles in dealer inventory and 88 days supply of inventory. You jump back just 1 month. So we're looking now at last month's information. That was 2.87 million vehicles in inventory and an 84 days supply. We're going to, like we always do, break down every manufacturer and where they sit on the inventory spectrum. That being said, the trend is very clear. These manufacturers have more of their vehicles sitting on dealer lots, not selling, taking longer to sell. That is not sustainable for the auto industry. The longer vehicles sit, the more pressure these dealers have to liquidate that inventory and get rid of it. This is a very treacherous moment, I think, especially as we head into, I mean, Dad, there's 900,000 2025 new vehicles still out there for sale right now. I mean, there's prior model year inventory galore as the 26s are rolling out. Like, there's a lot of pressure, I think, at this very moment that kind of breaks the argument that you were just saying, which is this is good enough for the manufacturers. Maybe it was last month, maybe it was a couple months ago, but I think a few more months sustained like this, and they're looking in the mirror saying, holy hell, where'd our shoppers go? Where'd our customers go?
But they know where their shoppers have gone. They know where their customers have gone. They know that they've continually raised the price of their vehicles significantly over the past 5 years. And in many cases, the prices have been raised at a higher level than the rate of inflation. So they know that they're appealing to a much smaller customer base. Their hope is that much smaller customer base can sustain them. I don't know that it can.
No, there's nothing about hope. There's nothing opinion here. The data is the data. It has no opinion. It is objective. And what is the data telling you? Why would inventory be going up and days supply be going up? That tells you that those customers are not buying. I mean, there's not hope here. There's numbers. This is quantitative, not qualitative.
Well, I understand it's quantitative, but trust me, at the management level, it's hope. Okay, because they've built all these things, they've raised all these prices, they've made the vehicles less affordable. They have sold the American public on the concept of $70,000 pickup trucks and $100,000+ SUVs. Okay, they're the ones that have marketed these things to create whatever interest there is in them. So
But
I
what
think
more
part
sign
of
do you need that the market's broken, Dad? Because to your point, the manufacturers are not increasing their incentives right now because they feel their hands are tied because they're trying to offset tariff costs. At the
yes,
same exact time, inventory is not getting smaller, inventory is getting larger. What happens when inventory builds? The amount of interest expense that dealers have to pay to hold that inventory goes up. We've watched this time and time again. Heck,
yes,
guys, we watched it work in the opposite way. What was it, 5 years ago now? Remember, every single large publicly traded car dealership group was making tens of millions of dollars more per quarter because they were making money from their floor plan expense because the manufacturer was subsidizing it, but the dealers were selling the inventory so quickly. Like, we have seen this market work in
yes.
really volatile ways at one end of the spectrum. And I think the data points to we are heading to the other end of this spectrum, which is the cars got too expensive. The manufacturers can't increase the incentives enough to subsidize the sale of those vehicles because their hands are tied due to tariffs. Inventory builds, buyer's market, pressure on from the manufacturer to the dealer. The person that has the power in this negotiation is you, the consumer. The market is broken. It is
Okay,
clearly broken to me.
okay. I'll accept your premise that the market is broken.
Thank you.
Okay, and I'll accept your premise to a certain degree that it's a buyer's market, but it's a buyer's market for a very small percentage of the population. Okay,
Well, let's look at the inventory
manufacturers,
levels by brand in a second here.
yeah, well, but the manufacturers, knowing what they've done, producing what it is that they're producing, okay, there is no way they can address the affordability issue on a $70,000 pickup truck. I don't care how much they lower the price of the damn thing. Okay? So the issue for me is that they all got too greedy too quickly. Oh, go figure. Giant corporations who are trying to make billions upon billions of dollars would ever try and take advantage of a situation if it were to occur. So they all got too greedy too quickly. They have shrunk their customer base who they can sell to, and even though it might be a buyer's market for those people, those who are looking at a $70,000 pickup truck with an average 6.5% of that transaction price taken up by incentives, so that's what, about $5,000. Okay, and if they get discounts, so maybe they're buying them for 60 grand. It is still out of reach for the vast majority of people, and it is becoming even more out of reach at this point in time for those well-heeled buyers who are still perhaps in the market. At a certain point, everyone has to look at this and go, I'm not spending that kind of, even though I make enough money, I'm not spending that kind of money for a pickup truck. I'm not spending 50 grand for a non-pickup truck. It is, so yes, I'll buy the premise that it's a buyer's market and the market could be broken. But I can't picture these manufacturers reversing course to the degree that it would bring back more customers and more buyers and bring back more people into the market. They have accepted the fact that they are going to sell fewer cars to fewer people, but those that they sell, they're going to make a significant enough profit on that they can maintain their position in the industry. That's what I think is going on.
To the numbers we go. Brands facing rising supply. I love this. and shifting demand.
The demand isn't shifting. Okay, they've been playing to the same small group of Americans for the last 4 or 5 years. It's
There's
not shifting.
There's two ways. Market day supply, which is the number we're going to look at here in a second, is how many days it would take to sell all available inventory based on current sales rates. There's two ways for that number to be influenced. Either you increase the amount of vehicles for sale, or you increase or decrease how quickly those vehicles are selling. Supply,
Yes.
demand. That's all we're looking at when we look at this. So this heading is funny because it's brands facing rising supply. Okay, they were honest about that one. Supply is increasing, and shifting demand. They're not being honest about that one. Rising supply, decreasing demand is what that
Yes.
should really say. Looking at mainstream brands, recent inventory trends reveal that some manufacturers may be edging toward overstocked territory as consumer demand shifts. Cadillac. So this is interesting, Dad. Cadillac's days supply increased 15% from a month earlier, signaling a potentially risky buildup if sales don't keep up. So Cadillac's a luxury brand, well-heeled
Yes.
buyers. They're seeing a 15% increase in their inventory relative to demand month over month. Jeep's situation is even more pronounced, a 24% jump in days supply and a 13% increase in inventory driven by models like the Cherokee, Compass, and Wrangler, putting the brand at the high watermark for 2025 and close to having more vehicles than the market might absorb. Okay, so let's just focus here on Cadillac and Jeep.
Yeah.
Dad, you're a manager of a dealership. You see your days supply of inventory increase by 15 or what was it, 24% respectively. Yes. What does that do? How does that change your mindset as the operator of that business? How do you think about your dealership when month over month you've had a 15 or 24% increase in your days supply of inventory?
Well, there's two things that I would think of. I would look at my inventory levels, and I would try and come up with a plan that will move my inventory sooner rather than later. I would also look at the average number of days it takes to move these vehicles that are growing in inventory. At a certain point, I am going to say, if I'm managing a store that sells Jeeps, I don't want any more of your Jeeps. Sorry, I know you've allocated another 45 Jeeps. I'll take 15. Well, what about the other 30? Not interested in the other 30. If I'm managing a Cadillac store, the same thing. I'm going to look at my daily sales rate, and I'm going to figure out how many days it's going to take me to sell what I have in stock, and I am going to turn down inventory as necessary in order to bring that turn rate to where it's turning more quickly as opposed to more slowly. So how do you impact those things? How do you get your inventory to turn more quickly? Typically, it's via pricing. Okay. We saw it during the pandemic when there were 900,000 vehicles available, new vehicles available for sale on a monthly basis. That meant that there was a limited supply and an excessive amount of demand, and dealers were doing additional dealer markups, market adjustments, anywhere from $1,000 to $20,000 or more. So we're now looking at a situation where the demand is much less or lower than the supply. So if your supply is greater than the people who want to buy it, well, what do? You have to lower the price. Now, the manufacturers have shown that because of tariffs, they can only afford to help to a certain degree, and that degree isn't quite as high as it had been. That means at the dealership level, if I'm running it, I have to, if my average new car gross profit today is $2,000, suddenly, in order to start moving the vehicles more quickly, that average might have to drop to $1,500 or $1,000 or even $500, because the cost of carrying all that inventory is staggering and negatively impacts net profit when everything is all said and done. So you got to turn it more quickly. The one way to turn things more quickly is to lower the price. and give the appearance of at least having lowered the price. And in many cases, you're going to have to follow through and lower the price. And if you have somebody that is literally in the financial position to actually move forward, you're not going to let that person leave until you figured out how to sell them a damn vehicle.
More data. For low volume brands, Porsche's inventory level increased 12%, a substantial increase that could lead to excess supply if demand softens. Even Mazda and Mercedes-Benz, with slower sales, are accumulating more vehicles on their lots, which may force them to rethink their strategies if these trends continue. Bottom line, automakers are walking a fine line, and raising inventories could quickly shift from strategic flexibility to a liability if stock outpaces sales momentum. Here's our chart. We look at it every single month, and you can see some really big numbers on the screen. Again, the industry average is it takes 88 days to sell all new vehicles in dealer inventory. Lincoln dealers, they have 155 days supply. Jeep, 146. Ram, 138. Mini, 134. Audi, 133. Guys, the industry wants this number to be somewhere between 60, maximum 90 days supply. Lexus and Toyota down there at 38 and 41 respectively is honestly too low. They wish they had more vehicles to sell. Honda right now, Subaru right now, Chevrolet, Infiniti, Porsche, and BMW. Those are the brands that are in the sweet spot. The rest, they are struggling to match supply and demand, many of them oversupplying their dealers, putting pressure on them, ultimately forcing them to liquidate and sell down their inventory at a lower price so that they don't pay more and more in floor plan costs. This is buyer's market 101, and you tie it back to what we looked at earlier. Fewer incentives, still sky high average transaction prices. This is a big storm brewing for all the reasons you mentioned, that because cost infrastructure, tariffs have increased the cost for the manufacturer. I mean, this is no good. This is I don't know any other way to say it. That month over month, the situation for car dealers and new vehicles got materially worse.
And I would imagine national dealer councils for each brand that are to the right of the nation's day supply of 88 are begging their people at the manufacturer's level, you have to improve your incentives. You have to give us more tools in our toolbox to be able to sell these vehicles. And, you know, we know historically that the fourth quarter is typically the time when we see the greatest incentive amounts offered. Absolutely. In order to hit those fourth quarter objectives and those yearly objectives. We know that. We've witnessed it. I lived through it for 43 years. Could we be seeing, because of the effective tariffs, could we be seeing for the first time in a really, really long time where the amount of incentives in the fourth quarter will not be the highest that we've seen for the year? And it just, from looking at the data, and it just seems that could be where we're headed. Now, I would imagine there is going to be the proverbial poop ton of leverage put on the manufacturers to help the dealers out. Whether or not they can, I don't know.
Well, Dad, Justin has already compiled for November, for example, incentives. There are 29 offers right now for 0% financing. So I actually disagree with you. I don't think that the pressure is so great that we're not going to see big incentives. We already are on brands where there is a real acute pain point to move the metal. And these manufacturers, they make a lot of money. A lot of money.
Do.
And so even if they are experiencing the tariff costs and things like that, like they have one job, and that is to sell inventory, to make sure that they are growing their market share and selling their vehicles. And so I kind of disagree with you. I don't think the writing's on the wall for incentives. I think the writing's on the wall for profit margin. And I think these manufacturers know that, and they're going to have to get through it. And the way they're going to get through it is by offering more 0% financing, more cash incentives, things like that to try and move the metal. You can't not sell a car, Dad. You can't not sell a car. It has to get sold eventually. The only way that works, it's supply and demand, is you lower the price.
Well,
the only way it works. We saw Nissan eroded their profit margin globally 99%. Why? Because they had to do so much spending on incentives.
I get that, but
the hands are tied.
But My suspicion is at the moment that there's going to be more pressure placed on the dealers to absorb the discounts than on the manufacturers to absorb that their dealer body's going to scream, we want more in the way of incentives. But I don't know that the manufacturers will acquiesce to that pressure from their dealer body. I think they're going to look at their dealer body and they're going to go, for most of the brands, not all the brands, but for most of the brands, they're going to go, listen, you've had pretty much a great 5 years. When the average net profit for dealerships was usually somewhere between 1.5% and 2%.
It's this chart, Dad. It's this chart. Sorry to cut you off, but it's this chart. You had a great 5 years. The profit per new vehicle sold went from $1,500 up to $4,600, and now we're back down to $1,800. You're saying, okay, get ready for that number to go back down to $1,500 or maybe even lower, because we're not going to give you incentives to sell these cars. You're going to have to take shorter and shorter car deals to make it settle. I think it's going to be both. Sorry to cut you off, but I think it's going to be both. And that's no matter how you slice this, what does it say? Buyer's market. Leverage is in the customer's hand.
I get that. My reasoning for thinking that it might not be both is because to a certain degree, there's a limited amount of cash that the manufacturers have that they're willing to put towards incentives at the moment. I think they're going to ask their dealers to eat it as opposed to the manufacturers eating it.
For sure. I will continue
Either way, it's good for the customer.
Exactly. Doesn't really matter. Like, we're getting into the semantics of it because, well, this is what we do professionally. But you know what? At the end of the day, if you've timed your shopping experience to be November or December of 2025, you're looking like a genius right now. You really are. You're looking really freaking smart because the market didn't have this dynamic to it 6 months ago.
Yeah, you're looking like a genius if you're well-heeled. If
you don't have to always caveat it with that. There are still opportunities. No, but there are still opportunities out there. Look at Nissan. Nissan's struggling mightily. You want to go pick up a Versa for under 25 grand and get a great deal? You can. Why do people not buy Nissans? I don't know. We could have that conversation for the umpteenth time. There are vehicles that have a high days supply of inventory that are cheap out there. And then there are also the Cadillac example, who saw their inventory increase by 15, or their day supply increase by 15%, or Jeep by 24. And we know the story there. The story there is because they jacked up the prices. But I don't think you can paint with such a broad brush here. Look at Nissan. Also, Pops, move your mic a little to your right. There you go. We can see your face again. Anyway, all right, Dad, should we come to the chat here?
But I was going to say, seeing my face just proves that I've got the perfect face for radio. I mean,
Matthew, Dad. Thank you, Matthew. We appreciate it. Zach sent you the Renlist write-up on the 718 Porsche 718 Euro trip for you and Ray to enjoy 7 countries, the Pyrenees, Andorra, 175 miles an hour on the Autobahn, the Nürburgring. What a car. I want to be Matthew one day. Just for one day, I want to be Matthew.
I don't want to be Matthew. I just want to hang out with Matthew.
For those of you that are unfamiliar, Matthew is a valued member of our community. Recently took European delivery of his new Porsche 718. Incredible to hear what you've been up to. Love that. I'll have to check my email. From Pat, do you think the major manufacturers will readjust their output to lower it to meet current demand? Yeah.
Well, that would sort of kind of be the intelligent thing to do.
I mean, what's Ford talking about with the Lightning? That they're just going to stop producing it altogether, even though they've, for the time being, postponed production.
Well, are there certain models that they might do away with? The thing that I find troubling is at some point, the manufacturers have to remarket their vehicles and make something less than $70,000 pickup trucks the desirable vehicle for people to buy. They're the ones that have created this market through the psychology of advertising that they've used, and they can use those same tools to convince the vast majority of people out there that you could be just as happy, if not happier, driving around in a much less expensive vehicle and make it cool that people would want it. and honestly, I don't see them doing that.
Yeah, Pops, I don't think that was the point. The point is, will they pull the lever of constricting production of their vehicles to try and match supply with demand?
And
That's unrelated to marketing. That's unrelated to model mix. That's just a obvious lever, and we've already seen them do it. We've seen Nissan, for example, globally shut down whole manufacturing plants.
they've sold 7 facilities, 7
Right.
manufacturing facilities.
So take models out of it. Yes, the short answer is, if sales don't pick up, what do we expect to see? We'll see more headlines over the next couple of months of manufacturers saying, oh, our parts supplier couldn't get us the parts, so we got to shut down the plant for 2 months. Was it actually the part supplier? Probably not. But that's going to be the story, right? So I think that to me is in that question from that community member, and quite frankly, what we've already seen happen over the past few years. When demand starts to wane and supply builds, we see all these convenient excuses for why plants need to get shut down.
Well, and they're not convenient excuses. They're the reality of the situation. They know, to a certain degree, they know what they're doing. They do, and then to a certain degree, they don't have a clue as to what they're doing, because when you look at the losses associated with their commitment towards battery electric vehicles and that swift move into battery electric vehicles, we saw that it was like this blind spot that they were just going forward with, and so yeah, they have to make adjustments.
All I'm saying, Dad, is that I'm calling BS when we get the report 2 weeks from now that Chevrolet is saying, because of a parts supplier missing something in the supply chain, we're going to have to shut down production of the Silverado at 2 of our plants for 2 weeks. That's all I'm saying. It has nothing to do with battery electric vehicles. Has nothing. I'm just saying there's convenient.
No, I understand what you're saying
for why these things happen. And then that's when we ultimately see the union fight back and say, what the hell's going on here? But, or what we'll see, and we've seen this happen many times over now, they'll get rid of overtime shifts. We've seen pullbacks on overtime shifts. That's another lever that the manufacturers can pull to stop running these plants at their highest capacity. I bet you we see both of those things happen over the next few months, especially if November sales data is weak. Now, speaking of weak, we are not. If we can help you, we're quite strong. CarEdge.com/concierge. Click the link in the top of the description here on YouTube. Get an expert car buyer on your side. Please, folks, if you haven't already, get a free consultation with our team and meet our team. See how many vehicles they've helped our community purchase. For example, here, Brian has 112 deals closed. Likes to work on new cars, leasing, and really loves educating customers. He saved an aggregate, Dad, $433,000 for CarEdge community members, and has 23 years of car buying experience, automotive industry experience. And you can even see the recent deals Brian has been able to help community members secure. So please, folks, get your free consultation, learn more about our team back at CarEdge.com/concierge. We're back tomorrow, Pops, for a Friday show. Sound good to you?
Yeah, I think Friday has some questions and perhaps some answers. And then today at 1:10, I have a date with some good folks in Rochester, New York, that we're going to film a segment that they're going to be using for their station up there.
Awesome. Well, thanks for doing that. And if you're in Rochester, tune in to see my dad on your local news. Pops, enjoy the afternoon, and we'll do it again tomorrow.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. And we look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow from, well, both Ventnor and Washington, D.C.